recess, I've decided to withdraw my request to add Mr. Dean to the witness list. I understand the court may still want to consider what's in these statements, and so I'm glad to hand those up to the court. And I did inform Mr. Trapp of my intention as well. And I'm happy to make an affirmative representation to the court that I would not seek to call or elicit any testimony about these particular events going forward.
I cannot tell you how to do your case. You have the better judge of that going forward. You are an experienced prosecutor, so you know as much as a family's wishes are important to you, being able to do your job, that in the end, whatever decision you make has to have much broader and bigger understanding.
Absolutely, Your Honor. It was not just their wishes. In fact, they told me to decide and not ask them, but in consultation with other members of my office as well.
Excellent. I'm going to let you hang on to that as long as Mr. Trapp has it. He's aware of that information. We're just going to proceed down the road, and we'll see how it goes.
And I was just handed one additional, if I could step back and make a copy for Mr. Trapp.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much. And given that, Your Honor, I did want to ask if the court feels as if those witnesses still need to be sequestered, or if Mr. Trapp has a position on that.
Mr. Trapp?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I did receive the information from the state, the statements from each individual. Based on the state's representation, there's no need for anyone to be sequestered. I believe that when this trial started, they were an important audience with the state, and I believe that should remain so. And if anything changes, then we will conference with the judge.
Sounds good. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you both.
Do we have just a moment to get them back in here before we bring the jury in?
Yes. Let's get Captain Ray up on the stand.
Oh, they go to lunch. Okay.
And I believe that when we had left, we were dealing with some potential hearsay. I had overruled the objection with the request that I give the instruction to the jury that information from, who was it again?
Christian Sykes, Your Honor.
Sykes. From Mr. Sykes is not to be considered for the truth of the matter started in it, but only as information that showed why the officers took subsequent action.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that good?
Yes, Your Honor, that is correct. Thank you for remembering.
All right. Anything else?
I just learned that those particular family members did step out for lunch, and so we will just pass them the message that they're allowed to rejoin us when they get back.
That'll be great.
Thank you,
Ms.
Your Honor.
Mr. Trapp, anything on behalf of the defense?
Nothing more from the defense. Thank you, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and bring our jurors in then. All right, we've got everybody, it appears, back from lunch. At this time, Captain Ray was on the stand. I have overruled the defense's objection. I will instruct you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that any statements from Mr. Sykes, those statements are not to be considered for the truth of the matter they're asserting, but are only being considered for the purpose of showing how those statements led to other actions that law enforcement took. All right. With that, Ms. Orr, the witness is with you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Captain Ray, I think I had asked you just before the break whether Mr. Sykes provided any information to you about where Issiah lived. Oh, is your mic on?
Okay. His mother lived in Deerfield Apartments.
And are you familiar with Deerfield Apartments?
In Devin City, yes, ma'am.
Once you received this information, what, if any, steps did you take to further your investigation?
Well, once I had the phone number, I put the phone number in what we call P2P. It's a database that we use, and it came up with an Issiah Ross that had used that number in a prior case.
And is this a database that you use frequently in your investigations?
It is.
And were you able to get date of birth for Mr. Ross?
I did.
What was that?
The date of birth was 12/8/2004.
Were you able to see anything about a possible address for Mr. Ross based on that information?
There was a couple of addresses, and one of them was a 1206 Deerfield Apartments in Mebane.
And based on receiving that information, did you or anyone else follow up on Mr. Ross at that address?
I did not. I provided that information to the lead investigator, and it was followed up on.
Your Honor, those are all the questions I have for Captain Ray. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Judge. Good afternoon, Captain Ray.
Good afternoon.
So on September the 18th, you said you went to the scene, right?
Correct.
And based on your description, you said you helped Investigator Baldwin measure stuff with his roll tape measurer.
Correct.
How long do you think you were there on scene?
I was there for a good while, not the whole time doing measurements, but just on scene for quite a while.
And in addition to helping measure, did you have other responsibilities?
We all walked around and looked for any kind of evidence. I didn't locate anything, but we all walk around just to look for evidence.
So you're a part of that group with Baldwin and with Villa and other individuals who walked and looked for shell casings or whatever may be on scene?
On the day of.
Yeah, the 18th.
Correct.
Okay. Were you there until the scene like closed and they kind of broke it down and took the tape down?
I don't recall how long I was there.
Okay. But then the next day, you said you spoke with Mr. Rogers, is that right?
Correct.
And when you spoke with Mr. Rogers, he gave you some details about what he had heard on the night of the early morning of the 17th?
It had been the Saturday morning. I assume that'd be the 17th.
Okay. And the way he described it to you, he said that initially he heard about 5 to 7 shots?
Correct. I heard 5 to 7 shots coming from across the field.
Okay. And then there was some time that elapsed, and then he heard 5 to 7 more shots?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. All right. And so he heard somewhere between 8 and 12 shots, give or take?
8 to 11, 8 to 12, somewhere around in there, yes.
And did he give you any kind of explanation of where he thought the shots were coming from, or what he saw once he heard them?
He told me the shots coming from across the field towards Buckhorn Road.
Okay. So he gave you a direction of where he heard them.
Correct.
And he gave you a time frame in which he heard these shots. Is that right?
Saturday morning around approximately 2:10 hours.
Okay. Okay. Then on September 19th, you yourself received a phone call from an interested party, or did someone say that an interested party had called in and you
I
called
believe
them
it came
back?
from the front office of the sheriff's office, maybe the main line.
Okay. And that main line call, that was Mr. Sykes that called the main line?
It was Michaela Glenn.
Okay. Did you yourself talk to Michaela Glenn?
I called Michaela Glenn, I did.
All right. And then when you spoke with Michaela Glenn, she was the one who told you to talk with Mr. Sykes?
Correct.
Okay. And then you proceeded to, and then Ms. Glenn give you his number?
She did.
And you proceeded to talk with Mr. Sykes over the phone?
Correct.
You did not meet him in person?
I did not.
Okay. And after you met with Mr. Sykes, did you give his information to someone else?
Correct. He could not meet at that time. I gave it to Lieutenant Hunter, who did an interview with him later that evening.
Okay. And you did not attend that interview?
No, sir, I did not.
But in the course of talking with Mr. Sykes, you took some of the information he had to verify its truthfulness, so there of like the address, location, or the phone number. Is that right?
Correct.
Did you do any information or background information on Mr. Sykes himself?
At that time, I did not.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, Captain, appreciate you being here. We're going to excuse you at this time.
The state will call Dawn Hunter.
You come right up here, we'll get you sworn in. When you sit up there, just make sure you're close to the microphone, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
Would you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Dawn Marie Hunter, DAWNHUNTER.
And what do you do?
I'm retired.
Where are you retired from?
I retired from law enforcement in 2024 from the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
How long had you been with the sheriff's office at the time you retired?
I was with the Sheriff's Office about 14, 15 years.
And did you have law enforcement experience prior to that?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
In Chapel Hill, and then prior to that in Brunswick County. And I started my career in Emerald Isle.
And throughout your tenure at the sheriff's office, what were your various roles?
I did criminal investigations. I did some patrol. I did SRT, and I did, I was also a supervisor on patrol and a supervisor in investigations.
And were you in investigations back in September of 2022?
I was.
And were you involved in the investigation of the deaths of Devin, Clark, and Lyric Woods?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Did you respond to the scene off of Buckhorn Road on September 18th?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe what you observed when you arrived there?
When I got there, I made contact with the supervisor on patrol and various patrol deputies, and they showed me up off of the gravel road where 2 bodies had been located, and I observed quite a bit of things. There was a black male and a white female. There was some shell casings, and I remember there also being some tire marks in the grass as if someone had turned around. The patrol officers had already started to put some placards out and started to set up crime scene. Later on, I had had them move the crime scene up towards Buckhorn Road and to block it off in both directions.
Did you have an opportunity to observe the 2 deceased individuals?
Yes, I did.
And what did you observe about them?
I'm going to refer back to my notes some, if that's okay.
I know it's been a little while.
Yeah. So the black male and white female were laying on their backs. There were a male's pants. He had, hold on one second, I'm sorry. The male's pants were down below his Reeboks briefers, and his thighs, and he was wearing gray sweatpants and a black hooded sweatshirt, black socks, and a white t-shirt. His abdomen appeared to be exposed and swollen. There were maggots and fly activity coming from both the male and the female. And he appeared to have gunshot wounds to his head and thigh area.
And what was the female wearing?
She was wearing a gray sweatpants, black t-shirt, red, white, and blue, with red, white, and blue writing on it. She had blonde hair. She had several necklaces on, and she had light blue socks on, and there was a blue Crocs shoe near her right foot, and another Crocs shoe was under the black male. And there appeared to be gunshot wounds to her left side of the neck, and both her hands were bloody, as was her face and head area.
Okay. Did you assist with any evidence collection on scene?
No. Only thing that I did was, when I first got there, patrol was starting to put some numbers out, and if I saw something that I thought would be of importance later on, I had them mark it. I did walk the gravel road to see if I saw any other evidence, which I didn't, other than the turnaround area. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And drawing your attention to the following day, September 19th. Did you meet with an individual named Christian Sykes?
Yes, I did.
And did you speak with him about potential information he had about this case?
I did.
Where did you do that?
I did that at the Walmart in Mebane, in the parking lot, in my work vehicle.
Did you record that interview?
I did.
And how did you record it?
With my body-worn camera.
Is Mr. Sykes pictured on that video?
He should be, if depending on how I had my body camera set up.
And who was it in the sheriff's office who asked you to go speak with him?
So I had received information from my supervisors that Chief Sykes had received a phone call, and in that phone call, was someone who had told us about Christian and that he had information pertaining to the homicides.
And then drawing your attention to the following day, September 20th, did you attend the autopsies for Lyric Woods and Devin Clark?
Yes, I did.
And did you receive any evidence from the medical examiner's office?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what that evidence was?
Right offhand, without looking at my notes or anything, I believe it was some bullet fragments and the blood cards.
And did
And
the...
some personal clothing, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, I interrupted you. So you collected their personal items as well?
That's correct.
And did the medical examiner's office also provide sexual assault kits
Yes, they did.
for both victims?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
It feels weird to call you Miss Hunter because I'm used to calling you Investigator Hunter, but I will show
No-
you what I
no
marked
problem.
as States Exhibits 116 and 117 and ask you if you recognize these items.
They're North Carolina State Crime Laboratory sexual assault kits.
And do you believe those to be the sexual assault kits you collected from the medical examiner for Devin Clark and Lyric Woods?
Yes, I believe so.
And once you collected those from the medical examiner's office, what did you do with them?
Normally, when I collect evidence, I put it into an evidence bag and I turn it into our evidence technique.
These obviously don't go in a bag, right?
No, ma'am.
But do you believe you would have brought those back with you to the sheriff's office?
That and along with several other items.
And who would you have given it to?
Our evidence tech, Zach Baldwin.
And after you turned that evidence in, did you have any other interaction with it at any time?
No.
Your Honor, this time I would move states 116 and 117 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
All right, we will admit states 116 and 117 into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I have no further questions for former Investigator Hunter.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon,
Good
Ms. Hunter.
afternoon.
Would you prefer investigator?
It does not matter what you like to call me.
All right. Well, I hope you're enjoying your retirement.
I am.
So in 2022, you were in investigation. Now, were you supervisor of investigation at the time?
Yes.
And so that means that, I guess, whenever there's a crime or something that happens, you may not necessarily handle it, but you may have your hands in it in some way. Is that fair to say?
It all depends on the situation. That particular weekend, I was on call and had been out on another incident that had occurred. And once I got home from being done with that particular call, I overheard radio traffic and also had received a phone call pertaining to the two bodies.
Okay. And so the call initially came in the afternoon of the 18th.
That's correct.
And you also mentioned that there were people already there starting to identify and mark things.
Some of the patrol deputies and later on, the administration, personnel, other investigators began to arrive.
Okay.
That's correct.
And you said you may not have necessarily found any evidence, but you were there while everyone was identifying it and putting placards on it. Does that sound about right?
I didn't touch anything. I observed. If I saw something, I would ask the patrol officers to put down some of the placards, the numbers, and I also directed them to put up crime scene tape. That's about it.
Okay. You also mentioned that you requested that the crime scene be expanded from the, I guess, the original location to make it larger. Is there a reason why?
Yes, because it was off Buckhorn Road, and people began to come from the community to the area, and we did not want anything to be messed with by anybody. We wanted to observe the scene as best as we could since it was in a rural area.
And so it wasn't, you didn't expand it because you thought you would find evidence further away. You expanded it in order to have a wider perimeter to keep
Well, the
people from-
gravel road runs off of Buckhorn, and you could see dust from the, I guess it would be someone coming off of the road, and not knowing if there was other evidence further up, I thought that we should preserve it.
Okay. And were you on scene until the scene closed, or did you leave before
No,
that?
I had left for another I'm sorry, what? What'd you say?
Oh, I was, nothing. I just want to make sure I finished my question. I think the court
Oh,
reporter
okay.
was trying
Go
to.
ahead.
I'll rephrase it so we can do
Sure.
it cleanly. Did you remain on the scene until they closed it?
No, I ended up leaving, tending to something else.
Now, you gave some pretty detailed information about your observations of the bodies. Was that one of your tasks or roles to kind of give detailed information on what you saw so they would have it for later?
Yes.
Okay. And did you give detailed information about any other things other than the two individuals that were found on scene?
I observed gunshot wounds to both victims, and that they were bloody. Yeah.
But outside of the victims, did you do any other detailed observation about any other evidence or things on scene?
I never collected any evidence, and I did not touch anything. I did observe what the people were wearing and the conditions that they were in and the general area itself.
And after you left the scene, at least on the 18th, you didn't have anything else to do with the investigation?
I did have some other things to do with the investigation. I did some interviews with various people, and I also went to the autopsies.
Okay. And the autopsies, those did not occur on the 18th, is that correct?
No.
They occurred later on, maybe a couple days later?
Yes,
Okay. And those autopsies were taken in Raleigh?
that's correct.
And is it typical for you to attend autopsies for cases?
It all depends. Based on some situations that took place that particular weekend, other than this case, yes, I did.
And were you there with any other officers, or were you by yourself, do you recall?
I went by myself, but I was in contact a lot with our evidence person, Investigator Baldwin, just to receive some photographs and general information to provide to the medical examiner and their investigators.
And so while you were there, did you bring these photographs? Were they on a phone? How did you give this to the...
So I had some on my phone, and I also had, it was my work phone. I think I had some that were with me at the time.
And you mentioned that when you left the medical examiner's office, you left with the sexual assault kit, which I believe was just introduced for both Devin and Lyric.
I had a lot of stuff that I collected from them, as it was personal items, the sexual assault kits, the bullets, fragments, and personal belongings.
And then those items were brought back to the Orange County Evidence.
That's correct.
And then you mentioned that at some point you spoke with a Christian Sykes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, did you speak with him on the phone first, or did you meet with him in person?
Only time I spoke with him on the phone was to confirm our time that we were going to meet at the Walmart. And then he told me what vehicle he would be in. And that was, we were to meet around 5 p.m. that day.
And when you actually met with him, were you weren't in like an interview room or anything like that because you're at the Walmart. Where did you actually speak?
In my work vehicle, which at the time was an unmarked vehicle.
Okay. And you were asked if, when this was recording, if you and or Mr. Sykes were on film. Do you recall if either one of you were on film, or was it just audio?
I haven't seen that particular body cam footage. I think it might be a little bit of both. I'm not for sure. I believe I had placed it somewhere in the center part of my vehicle.
And you said it was a body cam. It wasn't like a dash cam or an in-car camera or anything like that?
No, it was my body camera. We don't have, in the unmarked vehicles, a lot of us don't have cameras inside of the vehicle.
All right, one moment, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Investigator Hunter,
Yes.
you had mentioned that there was a lot of, I guess, dust either on the road or I don't know if it was in the air when you arrived.
It was unseasonably warm that time of year, and I believe that there was like some dust where a vehicle had come out onto the road area, and then I'm not certain on that, but I think like when you first get onto the road, there would been some like light colored dust.
And are you referring to like tire marks, or was this like dust particles in the air?
Oh, no, it would have been like as if a vehicle had pulled off of the gravel road.
Okay. And did you take note on what direction it was going?
Not at that time, no, I did not. That was the purpose, one of the purposes that I had requested that the crime scene be extended.
Okay. Did you yourself notice any vehicles coming in or coming off of that gravel road while you were there?
No, not while I was there at all.
And did you ask if any of the other officers had driven on or come off that gravel road to make?
So when I arrived to the scene, the patrol deputies were parked on the side of Buckhorn Road, not on the gravel portion at all.
And I know this was almost 4 years ago. Do you recall seeing like a pickup truck on that gravel road when you arrived?
I cannot tell you.
Okay, say no more. And when you were giving descriptions of both Mr. Clark and Miss Woods in that area right there, did you take note of any items that were underneath Mr. Clark?
Yes, I saw a blue Croc shoe.
And did you see another one while you were on scene as well?
Yes, near her body. There was one by her foot, I believe.
No further questions from this witness, Judge.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
I have a question before I leave. Do I have to still be on standby?
Any objection to releasing the witness from her subpoena obligations, State?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No objection, Judge.
All right. You are released from your subpoena obligations for this trial. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. Would you like to approach? Ladies and gentlemen, we just need to take a quick recess before we start with the next witness. So remember the rules. I can't imagine that you've forgotten them yet. Remember to leave your notepads and pens and stuff on your chair. You can leave your jackets here if you want, because we'll just be gone in just a couple minutes. Everybody else, please remain seated. We'll excuse our jurors at this time for 10 minutes.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Let's go ahead and bring our folks back. All right, we got everybody back. Madam DA?
Your Honor, the state will call Investigator Kyle Borland.
Investigator Borland, if you come up here, we'll get you sworn in.
I do.
Investigators, you sit up there and make sure you're close to that mic, okay?
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Kyle Borland, Kyle-E-B-O-R-L-A-N-D.
And where do you work?
I work for the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been there?
This is my 25th year.
And what capacity do you serve there?
Criminal investigations.
How long have you been in the Criminal Investigations Division?
This will be my 6th year.
What did you do before that?
I was a lieutenant on the patrol division.
And prior to that?
I served as a task force officer on the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. I've been a K-9 officer and also worked in the detention center.
And were you an investigator back in September of 2022?
I was.
And did you respond to the scene off of Buckhorn Road on the afternoon of September 18th of 2022?
I did.
And what did you do when you arrived on scene?
When I got there, I assisted with locating evidence at the scene.
And what did that entail?
Basically, we were looking for any type of evidence that, related to the crime. I was able to locate several shell casings at the scene.
Where did you locate those?
They were near the female victim's body within 2 or 3 feet.
And once you located them, what did you do?
I notified Investigator Baldwin, who was on scene, which is our evidence tech, and he took care of the placards and collecting that evidence.
Could you tell any specifics about those casings?
I could not.
And why not?
Without touching them, I can't tell as far as calibers, things of that nature.
And after assisting with locating evidence on scene, what did you do?
I did a neighborhood survey, which is where we go around to the neighborhood asking for any information about what happened, if they seen anything, things of that nature.
And were you successful in receiving any information?
I was at, I spoke to a Wendy White at 6115 Yarborough Road. She advised that she heard 10.
That's fine, Your Honor. We can move on.
Sustained.
Thank you. Other than Ms. White, did you speak with anyone else?
I spoke to several neighbors, but didn't hear anything.
Investigator Borland, I want to draw your attention to the following day, September the 19th. Did you respond to the Deerfield Crossing Apartments in Mebane?
I did.
And why did you do that?
I was notified that the FBI task force was there and they had located a vehicle of interest at the time, and it had some blood stains on the vehicle.
And so, did you respond there?
I did.
What happened when you got there?
I talked to, at the time when I got there, the task force was already talking to Ms. Cordero in her apartment. I went up and also stood by with them.
And who is Ms. Cordero?
It's the lady sitting right over here, which is the defendant's mother.
And what did you do while you were on scene there?
I went down and looked at the vehicle, and also noticed the blood on the vehicle. We seized the vehicle at that time, and I called for a tow truck to tow the vehicle.
Did you wait while the tow truck responded?
I did.
And once the tow truck was there, what happened?
They loaded the vehicle, and I followed the vehicle to our detention center where we had it in a secure facility.
Did anyone have to touch or enter the vehicle for it to be loaded onto the tow truck?
No.
Okay. And did you follow the vehicle all the way to the detention center?
I did.
Once you got there, what happened?
Once I got there, we pulled it into the Sally Port, where's the secure facility. The vehicle was unloaded there. I put crime scene tape around the vehicle and also put a do not touch sign around the vehicle.
Did anyone have to enter or touch the vehicle while unloading it?
I think I had to put the vehicle in neutral with, I did have latex gloves on at that time when I did that, just to get the vehicle off the truck.
Did you ever sit in the car?
I did not.
If I could have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
When you were on scene at Deerfield, did you ever go inside the apartment?
I did.
And why did you go inside?
I went in with the TFOs that were there at the time to speak to Ms. Cordero. She did advise that there was some Ring doorbell camera video of her son that night, on the night in question, of him coming and leaving the apartment.
And did you receive that video?
I did. I received it via email.
And were you able to review it?
Yes.
And was it from the correct date?
I believe it was, yes, the 19th. No, I'm sorry. I think it was the 18th. I'm not sure if I got it wrote down in my notes, if it's the exact date on there.
Investigator Borland, Would reviewing your report help refresh your recollection as to what date that Ring camera doorbell footage was from?
Yes, I'm reviewing it.
Thank you. I'll mark this as states 124, just for identification.
So it's marked as number 124. You may hand it to the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It was, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Investigator Borland, I'll hand you what I've been marked as states 124. And do you recognize this document?
I do.
And what is that?
That is my supplement report.
And looking here on the bottom of the second page, would you just review that and let me know when you finished?
Okay. So that Ring doorbell camera was from September 16th, 2022.
Thank you. And was it from the morning or the afternoon? Do you recall?
It was early morning.
Did you or anyone else while you were on scene search anywhere inside the apartment at Deerfield?
I did not. I'm not aware of anyone doing that.
If I could have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all the questions I have for Investigator Borland. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Trout, cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Investigator Borland, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you mentioned that you've been in law enforcement for a while, 25 years, is that right?
Correct.
And currently you are in the Criminal Investigations Unit.
Yes.
And on the day or on the year day, September 18th, 2022, you were in the Investigations Unit at that time too, correct?
I was.
And when you came on scene, do you recall if you're one of kind of the first people getting there? Did you get there later after things had already started?
I was one of the first 5, I would say, on scene.
And you mentioned you helped kind of walk the scene and look for evidence, right?
Correct.
And while you were walking the scene and collecting evidence, you said you located 3 shell casings.
That's correct.
But you did not put on gloves and pick them up and examine them in any way. You just kind of located them so they can be marked, right?
That's correct.
Could you tell from your observation whether or not they were similar or what caliber of gun they came from, anything based on your training and experience?
Not by looking, no.
And do you recall the 3 that you found, were they in gravel? Were they in grass? Do you know what kind of terrain they were found in?
If I remember correctly, they were in grass.
Okay. And based on the terrain, because there was gravel and rock and stuff like that, it was kind of hard to find these little shell casings because of their size and the way that the rocks looked. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Do you recall who was out there helping you find this evidence?
At that time, I believe Investigator Baldwin was there.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly Investigator Vila was there. That's all I remember, being there exactly looking for evidence at that time.
Okay. Do you recall if Investigator Hunter was there or came there after you got there?
She was there when I arrived on scene, yes.
And was she helping, like, put placards down? Or?
Yes.
Now, after you helped locate evidence or things of interest on the scene, did you have any other jobs while you were there?
I did survey the roadside for any evidence. I walked northbound on Buckhorn Road. I didn't locate anything of any value there.
So then the next day, that's when you went to the apartments, correct, at Deerfield?
That's correct.
And you had received information that there was a car of interest at this location, correct?
Correct.
Who did you get that information from?
I believe I got that from Captain Ray.
Okay. So Captain Ray informed you that there might be a car of interest at this location.
Correct.
And when you went there, did you have any description of what the car looked like?
I did not.
And when you got there, you mentioned you called the tow truck. The car wasn't in your custody at that point. Is that right?
If we call for a tow truck, it's usually in our custody at that time.
Okay. But you called for the tow truck.
I did.
But before you got there, it was not.
No, I did not call before I got there.
And at the time, did you have any signed documents from a judge that would have allowed you to take this vehicle?
No.
Okay. You mentioned that you went into the apartment, and did you yourself speak with Ms. Cordero, or were you kind of standing there as other people were talking to her?
I was kind of standing there while they talked to her.
Okay. But at some point, she agreed to send you a copy of a Ring camera.
Correct.
And then you reviewed it and saw that this was for the morning of the 16th.
Correct.
And you were looking for different dates and times. Is that right?
No, I wasn't looking for anything. That's what she offered to send to me.
Okay. Did you ever follow back up with her and ask her for any other footage?
I did not.
Now, after you finished, I guess, listening to this conversation between Ms. Cordero and whoever else was at the apartment, is that when you called the tow truck, or did you do it before you went inside?
I think I called the tow truck after I went down and viewed the vehicle.
Okay. And you said the tow truck driver didn't even have to touch the car in order to load it up on his truck.
Correct.
But once it got to the Sally port, you had to put it in neutral in order for it to be released?
Correct.
Okay. And you said you had to put your gloves on in order to do that?
I did.
And so did you actually have to climb up on the tow truck and then reach inside the car, or how do you?
What I would do, I would turn the key, put my hand on the brake, and pull the gear shift into a neutral position.
Okay. Okay. So you had to put the key in the ignition and somehow then move it into neutral.
I believe that's right, yes.
And then once the car was released from that tow truck, that's when you put the crime scene tape on and a big sticker or piece of paper that says "Do not touch."
Correct.
And that was all done on the 19th, and you did not do anything else in reference to this investigation on that day?
No, I didn't.
Did you collect any other video in reference to this investigation?
Yes, I did.
Was that video from a business, a home?
A business.
Did that reveal anything to you?
I just collected it and turned it over to Sergeant Goodwin.
Okay. One moment, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Nothing further from the defense, Judge. Thank you.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you, officer. Excused.
The state will call Antoine Bryant.
Mr. Bryant, if you come right over here, we'll get you sworn in, all right?
Do you solemnly affirm the testimony about to give this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, this being a solemn affirmation?
I affirm.
You sit down in that chair and make sure you're sitting close to that microphone, okay?
I will.
Thank you.
Mr. Bryant, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
My name is Antoine Bryant, Antwan. Last name Bryant.
And Mr. Bryant, do you know Issiah Ross?
Yes, I do.
How do you know him?
Previously, before the incident, I was in a relationship with his mother.
And do you see Mr. Ross in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point out where he is seated and describe an article of clothing he is wearing?
He's seated from my right of his lawyer with the black suit on, but he has on a collared shirt.
Thank you. I would ask the record to reflect that Mr. Bryant has identified the defendant, Issiah Ross.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you. And Mr. Bryant, do you also know Devin Clark?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know Mr. Clark?
His father and me are first cousins. Our mothers are sisters.
Mr. Bryant, I want to bring your attention to the weekend of Saturday, September 17th, and ask you if you saw Mr. Ross on that day.
Yes, I saw him on a Saturday.
Can you describe what happened on that Saturday?
Probably about 11:30 or so in the morning, I got a phone call from his mom to come over to the house. Kind of irate about something, so that's when I started getting dressed and I headed over there.
What happened, or around what time was that?
I probably arrived maybe about 12 o'clock.
And what happened when you, or where did you go?
I went to her apartment where she was staying
Where is that?
at Deerfield.
And what happened when you got there?
I met her at the doorway. Well, we went to the door and she let me in, and she just started telling me that he had lied about taking her car or something like that.
And was Mr. Ross there?
Yes.
And what else happened while you were there?
During that time, she had showed me a video of him leaving out of the house and then coming back and just sort of talking and trying to ask him why was he trying to lie about going out on the car or whatever.
And how would you describe his mother's demeanor?
She was upset about it. I think it was more about lying, so she was mad about that.
And how would you describe Issiah's demeanor?
I guess he was sort of mad that he wasn't being believed, but he was more or less in the back bedroom.
Did you have a chance to look at her car?
Yes, I did.
And did you see damage on it?
When I initially pulled up, I did see some marks on the bumper, which I did say something to her about.
Did you notice anything else with regard to that vehicle?
No, we walked outside and I asked her to crank it up, and I did lay on the ground I said if he moved it, maybe he ran over something. So I sort of laid down prone and looked under the car, make sure the drive shaft or transmission wasn't messed up.
Did you notice anything like that?
No.
After you all checked the vehicle, what happened?
Well, after she cranked it up, like I said, I was laying on the ground. She pulled it forward out of the space and backed it back up. Didn't notice anything, and so she got out of the vehicle and we proceeded back into her apartment.
And what happened then?
Just still sort of talking about the fact that he was lying about using the car or whatever.
About how long were you there?
Probably about 3 hours or so, because I think I got home maybe about 3:30.
And when you went home, was anybody with you?
Yes,
Who was that?
Issiah.
And what, if any, decisions were made about where he would stay for the rest of the weekend?
Well, because of she was irate with him and basically said that he was going to have to go. I said that he could end up coming over to the house because my son was gone to his mom's for the weekend.
And so, how long did Mr. Ross stay with you?
He stayed overnight, Saturday until Sunday.
How would you describe his demeanor the rest of the day on Saturday?
He didn't really talk too much to me. He did. A couple of buddies of mine came by. I think he did speak or say something to them, but he didn't really say too much. He stayed outside most of the night.
Was that normal for him?
I would say to be sort of offish, yeah, because he would normally, when they did reside with me, he normally would be in his room sometimes.
Okay. Can you walk us through what happened then on Sunday morning?
Sunday, I got up probably about 8 o'clock or so. I cleaned up. I proceeded to go ahead and get dressed. I was going to church, and then I was going to a funeral for a family friend, but also my nephew's aunt. And once I got dressed and I was going to leave, I told Issiah there was some food or whatever in the freezer. He could heat up something if he wanted something else. Once I came back from that, I would go get it. But I did want him to try and fix everything and smooth it over with his mom.
And what happened after you got back from your engagements that morning?
Well, after I went to church, and then I went to the funeral, which was at a different location. And at that time, that's when I talked to my nephew, and that's when I found out that my cousin Devin was missing. So after church, I went straight to my cousin Maurice's house, and he was sitting out in the yard. I remember he had some shades on, and he was talking with his sister that's right beneath him. And so we were just standing out there, and he was just telling me that he hadn't talked to him. And I was like, that was weird. And so about that time, I told him I was going to have to leave, but I may come back, but I was going to have to take my ex-girlfriend's son to catch a bus because he was thinking about going back to stay with his father.
And who is Maurice?
Maurice is Devin's dad.
Does he also go by another name?
Yeah, his real name is Dexter, but we have the same middle name, so he goes by Maurice, not me.
Now, what time did you go back home after visiting with Maurice?
It was, I want to say it was probably about 3 o'clock.
And what happened when you got there?
At that time, I was changing clothes, and I was sort of still I was in another room, but I was sort of loud talking, just trying to say little things to Issiah, telling him he had asked him had he called his mom, was he going to fix this? He doesn't need to, be upset or have her upset with him, and whatever. And
how did the plan come about or come to your attention for him to go to the bus station?
Well, he told me that he had talked to her. She had said it was okay, that he could go ahead and go stay up there. So I asked her if it was okay, did she want me to take him? I felt like she should, but I said I would take him.
Was there any discussion of this going to Delaware on Saturday?
I think he did say something about it on that Saturday. He was going to go up there, but I kept telling him it wasn't right. I also told him that his mom was worried about whether he was going to make sure he finished school or stuff like that she was really on him about that.
So did you end up taking him to a bus station on Sunday?
Yes, it was probably after I got dressed, maybe about 3:30 or so, my oldest sister called me, and that's when she did tell me that they thought they had found Devin and the young lady or something. And so I think she hung up and she called me back maybe 30 minutes later. And then when she did tell me it was them, I just sort of sat around for a couple of hours. But then Issiah did say something about having to go to the bus station. And I asked him at that time, I said, well, what time is the bus coming and where is the location? Because I need to know how long the drive is, and that'll determine what time I leave.
And what did he tell you?
I want to say he said the bus came at 9, and so after he sent me the location via text, I want to say it was something like 4300 or 2400 something Burn Avenue in Raleigh. So when I MapQuested, it was like 48 to 50 some minutes. So I said, well, we can leave at 7 o'clock. I can stop and get gas, and we'll still be there on time.
Did Issiah and Devin know each other, to your knowledge?
Yes, they did.
And do you know how long they had known each other?
I think Issiah came down in like May of 21, and they met around maybe a month or so later.
Did they hang out?
I didn't see them hang out. I know that they had a couple of times in the yard when I was out in the yard, whether it was cutting brush or something. I remember my nephew, Dontrell, and Devin had came down, and they had the little motorcycle, and they would ride in the wood lines. So Issiah did come outside one time. Second time I made him come outside, and they were outside talking, but that was maybe like anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
Did they go to the same high school?
Yes.
And what high school was that?
Eastern Alamance.
Going back to Sunday evening, or Sunday afternoon, did you and Issiah talk about the fact that Devin was found deceased?
We didn't talk about it, but I think when I got the call back from my sister, I want to think that Issiah was sitting in my kitchen at that time, and I actually had my computer and stuff in the kitchen, so he was sitting in an office chair.
And, but you don't remember specifically if you told him that Devin was found dead or anything like that?
When I said it, like I said, I had a couple of buddies there, and so when I did say it, he could have overheard it from in the kitchen.
On Sunday evening, did you end up taking him to a bus station?
Yes, I did.
And is it the same one that you described in Raleigh?
Well, it's not actually a bus station. It's just an address. It's like an intersection, and there are two convenience stores, one across the street, but the other convenience store there is like a Microtel Inn or Suites or something parking lot right there, so it's all conjoined together, and the bus just comes and pulls down at the edge of the intersection and picks people up.
Can you describe what happened while y'all were there waiting for the bus?
Well, when I pulled up, I noticed it wasn't a true bus station, so I pulled up and I pulled right at the doorway of the convenience store, and I asked the guy, did a bus come down there? And he said, yes, at the bottom of the lot. So I got back in the car and I told Issiah that, and instead of pulling at the bottom, he asked me to pull up beside a fence that was beside the hotel.
And what, if anything, did he do while y'all were waiting?
Well, he went ahead, once I parked, he went ahead and he got out and he went in the trunk and he got his bag and stuff out. And then he just sat outside the car.
Did that strike you as unusual?
Kinda, because he normally did talk to me. You know, he wasn't very talkative, but he would talk to me.
How long did you have to wait for the bus?
I think the bus came more or less about 9:45 that night.
What time was it supposed to come?
At 9.
Did Issiah talk to you at all while you were waiting for the bus?
It was probably a few words. Like I said, he sat outside the car. So I was having to let my window down if I did say something to him or whatever. He was normally, I can't say if he was really on his phone a lot or something like that because of the location of where he was sitting.
Where was that?
It was more on my passenger side of my car, but where my backseat rider door would open, he was kind of a little behind that. So it was a little obstructive view from my rear view. So I was having to lean forward and stuff to sort of see him. But I was just saying stuff like, you know, hey, I hope you finish school. I don't know what's going on. You need to fix this, stuff like that.
What kind of stuff did he bring with him from his mother's house to your house?
I assumed it was clothes because when I did walk to his room at his mom's house, at first the door was shut and I asked him to open it and I was telling him to hurry up. So he put a lot of stuff in a suitcase and then he did put, he filled up like 2 white trash bags of clothes.
And did he take all of those items with him when he got on the bus as well?
All I know is once he got to the house, I want to say maybe either from that Saturday or that Sunday while I was gone, because he did get up early Sunday once I got up, and I think he was trying to consolidate that stuff out of the 2 bags or whatever.
And did you wait the whole time until the bus arrived?
Yes, I did.
And once it arrived, what happened?
Well, once it arrived, he grabbed his stuff and he sort of took off and went to the bottom of the lot. And he was going to get on the bus, and I pulled down there and I took a couple of pictures of him to try and let his mom know that I didn't just drop him off and leave him somewhere, because I wouldn't want nobody to do my kid like that.
Sure. At what point did you become aware that law enforcement needed to speak with you?
I want to say Tuesday maybe they showed up as I had went to pick my son up from school. And they come to my house, flew in my yard or whatever, and they reached trying to grab my son, and I'm like, what are you doing? You know, what? I don't want to curse.
Just paraphrase.
I was like, what the heck are you doing? You don't touch my mother freaking son, you know. And they were like, what do you, I said, what do you want with my son? I said, he's a minor. I said, he's only 14. He's like, what's his name? And I said, that's Elijah. And they said, oh, okay. And I said, yeah, I know it's freaking okay. Don't run up here in my freaking car ever again about my son, or else you know. So I was just upset, but I was like, what are you doing here?
And did they explain what they were trying to accomplish?
Well, they did eventually. Once they talked to me and they was asking me something about, did I date this person, Isaiah's mom? And I said, yeah. And they was like, well, does she live at such and such? And I said, well, if you knew that, why are you even here? And they was like, well, we just wanted to ask you something about her son. And I was like, what? I said, why don't you ask her? I said, you know where she lives? I said, well, this was his last address. I said, yeah, but he hasn't lived here since probably March, April. And so they kept on just going around different things. And so I finally exploded on them, and I told them I didn't have time for their mother freaking BS. My family was dealing with a tragedy that just happened, and then that's when the police officer, he said, you mean Devin? And so I said, well, yeah, how you know? And they said, well, that's kind of why we're here. I said, kind of. I said, what do you mean? And at that time, that's when they said, well, we think that maybe Isaiah had something to do with it. And I was like, what? No. And the officer's like sort of grabbed me by, he's like, just, you'll be all right. He said, I know. He said, it's surprised. I said, yeah. I said, it's very surprising. I said, no. I said, how is this? And he said, well, that's what we're thinking. I said, but I said, you mean to tell me this person probably killed my cousin? I said, they were just here at my house. I said, I just fed them. I just gave them a ride. I said, I was looking out for them. I said, no. And they was just like, they sat there with me probably about 20, 30 minutes.
At some point, either that day or another day that week, did you come down to the sheriff's office?
I want to say, yes, either that day or the very next day. I came on down, and I just basically told them pretty much everything I've just stated.
Since you dropped Issiah off at the bus station on that Sunday, have you had any contact with him?
His mom did call me, and she was saying she didn't have a way to get in touch with him, and so I did try and call him, and I did say that he needed to answer the phone and talk to his mom or whatever, and he was just telling me that he didn't want to talk to her or whatever. So I was like, that's not right. And he was saying she said something, and I said, that's your mom. I said, you're supposed to listen to her. I said, she can say whatever. I said, she's worried about you. I said, she's always been worried about you. I said, she gives you everything. I said, so why wouldn't she be able to say it? And he was just like, he didn't really want to talk, and it was more or less his sister or something that didn't give him the phone. And I said, that's not right. I said, because if that was her mom, how would she feel?
So when was that conversation?
That was maybe that Monday or so. Yeah, it was before the police had came to my house.
And you said something about a sister?
Yeah, I do know that he was telling me that his sister had answered the phone. So she didn't give him the phone call when his mom called.
And do you know where his sister lives?
No.
If I could have just one moment, Your Honor, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have for Mr. Bryant. Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Bryant.
Good afternoon.
All right, there we go. So prior to the time that you went over to Ms. Cordero's apartment, that would have been, I guess, Saturday, September 17th, Mr. Ross had actually lived in your residence. Is that right?
That's correct.
And he lived there for how long?
Close to a year.
Okay, so he was there, Ms. Cordero was there, and I guess his sister was there too?
Yes.
And then at some point, she got her place in Deerfield. Do you recall when that was?
Maybe March or April.
Okay. And you said that you got a phone call in the morning of Saturday the 17th, and that Ms. Cordero seemed like she was upset.
That's correct.
And she asked you to come over?
Correct.
And about how far distance is your place to her place?
Maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
So not too far.
No.
And you think this was late morning, early afternoon? Like just before lunch?
Yes, I know it was.
Okay. And when you got there, you said that you, let me rewind. Did you know before you got there that this had something to do with her car?
She was saying, like I said, she was really upset. I know she was sort of yelling in the phone. There was a few expletives. He lied, or he's lying or something. or whatever. And so I was just trying to get dressed and just come and get over there.
You had mentioned before that when you were outside, you took a look at the car, and that's why I was trying to figure out, did you know that this issue at that time had to deal with the lying or whatever, had to deal with her car?
She may have said it. I just happened to look at the car as I pulled in, whatnot, because I think I want to say I parked beside it or whatever.
And you said you noticed some damage to the front bumper area of the car, right?
Well, it was some black marks on the bumper.
Okay. And was it at that time that you went underneath the car and looked to see if there was any damage when you saw that scratch by the bumper?
No, I waited till me and her went outside, and then that's when I did that.
Okay. And did you notice anything else on the car, on the outside of the car, that drew your attention other than the black streaks?
No.
Okay. And so when you went inside, is the only person you interacted with or spoke to, was that Ms. Cordero, or did you talk with Mr. Ross and his sister at that moment?
Most of the conversation was with his mom. There was occasional time I did say something to him. I think I did go back and maybe walk back to his room area maybe 2 to 3 times, but I know he did come up the hallway maybe once or twice.
Okay. And you mentioned that he had 2 plastic garbage bags and a suitcase.
Yes.
And those are the 3 items he took with him when he went to your house.
That I do remember he did definitely have the suitcase and the 2 trash bags, because I was telling him to hurry up because I was trying to go back home.
And you had given a time frame that you got home around 3, so you were there for close to 3 hours?
Yes, me and his mom was sitting at the table talking.
Okay. But the majority of the conversation and interaction was with you and his mom, Ms. Cordero, not with Issiah?
Not as much.
And you mentioned that there was some discussion about Issiah not being able to stay at her house. Is that right?
Yes, she was saying that he was going to have to go.
Okay. And that there was some conversation that she wanted him to go stay with his father. Is that right?
I don't know if it was wanting him to go up there, or that's where I think he was wanting to go.
Well, in these conversations, because you were there for a little bit of time, there wasn't an expectation that he was going to stay at your house, right?
No, it was just the expectation that you wanted him out right then. And like I said, I just associated with just being upset. Maybe it could be something that could calm our heads, could prevail the next day.
Okay. But on that day, once you had Issiah, or maybe shortly before you left, you did communicate with Issiah about getting a bus ticket. Is that right?
He did communicate that he wanted to get a bus ticket and go back up. Yes, he did.
And there was an attempt to get a bus ticket on that Saturday, but that didn't work out. Is that right?
I don't know. Maybe he did. I think he tried to, and it didn't pan out.
But eventually, a bus ticket was purchased, and that was for Sunday evening. Is that right?
To my knowledge, yes.
And so that Sunday, I think you mentioned you went to church and went to a funeral.
Correct.
And then maybe you got back around 3 or so?
Yes.
And then after you found out the time that the bus was leaving and that it was all the way out in Raleigh and how far it was, that's when you decided you're going to leave around 7.
Correct.
And once you guys got to the location, you had to wait because the bus was late. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, when you got to the location, you said Issiah sat outside your vehicle, right?
Yes.
Were there are other people sitting outside waiting for the bus? Is that correct?
Not where I was parked at.
But there are other people in the vicinity.
I can't say that where I was at the top of a lot. If other people were waiting, they were probably waiting in cars or something like that. It was across the lot.
Okay. And so when the bus arrived and Issiah got on the bus, you could physically see him get on the bus, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw him get on the bus, you saw other people get on the bus too, right?
Yes.
Okay. And after he got on the bus, you did talk to him on the phone again. Is that right?
I may have called him as soon as he got on and got settled on. I was like, hey, I'm headed on back down the road or something like that.
So this conversation about, hey, you really need to work things out with your mom, that wasn't on the phone?
No, I said that when we were leaving from his mom's house to my house. I said it Saturday. I also said it to him Sunday while we were sitting around my house.
Okay. But it wasn't after the fact about, we need to reconcile, make sure you go finish school and all that other stuff. It wasn't after he had left.
I told him several times, even while he was there and once he got on the bus, that he needs to make sure that he finished school.
So the last time you saw or talked to him was when he was sitting outside the car waiting to get on the bus?
No, that's not the last time.
So you talked to him after he got on the bus?
I said that I talked to him. I made a call. You asked, did I make a call? And I said I may have, but then I also talked to him the next day when I was telling him about his mom could not reach him.
Okay.
So that would have been after the bus. That would have been once he had got to his destination.
I apologize. So after he left your presence on the bus, you talked to him on the phone the next day, which would be Monday?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And that's when you had the conversation with him, maybe a further time about reconciling with his mother?
Yeah, well, I was telling him he needed to fix that. He needed to make sure he answered her call and talked to her.
Okay. Did you try and talk to him or reach out to him again after that day?
I want to think so. Yeah.
So you did talk to him again?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know around what time? If that was Monday that we know that you talked to him, what would it have been? Would it have been Tuesday? Would it have been Wednesday?
I think it was after, it may have been Tuesday or so.
Okay. And in that conversation, was it a similar content or did you talk about something different?
No, it was questioning. At the specific time when the police came, I was on the phone with his mother, so she heard what was going on, or some of it.
So when you talked to Mr. Ross on the phone, his mom was in the background. Is that what you're saying?
No, I said when I was talking to the police at my house, his mom was on the phone. I was talking to her on the phone.
Okay. So you talked to his mom when the police came over?
I was already on the phone with her.
All right. And then so did you eventually patch Issiah in on three-way? Because I was just asking about Issiah.
No, I didn't.
I'm going to rephrase my question just so I make sure I have it clear. So after Monday, did you talk to Issiah again?
No, I said I don't think I did. It was actually Monday was the only day. I talked to his mom on the next day, and that's when I was trying to figure out what was going on because she was already on the phone with me when the police came up in my yard. Okay. So she sort of heard the interaction with me and the police.
All right. Sorry, I was confused. Thank you for clearing that up. So you said you go to pick up your son, and that was that Tuesday.
Yes.
When you're, I guess, pulling into the parking lot or pulling into the driveway, that's when they kind of surround you and your son. Is that fair to say?
Well, they flew in on I think I wanted to say a white Tahoe truck. Okay.
And they went as far as kind of putting their hands on your son when you guys were trying to get out the car?
Well, getting to reach into the car or whatever. They came up to the car, and that's when I was like, well, I exploded because I didn't know what was going on.
Right. And at some point, they gave some explanation as to why they were there. Is that right?
Yes, after me and my son both got out of the car, and I instructed him to go on in the house.
They asked if they could search your residence. Isn't that right?
I want to say yeah.
And you said sure.
Yeah.
All right. And they didn't find anything in your residence. Is that right?
Correct.
And I'm assuming they asked you about all your interactions you had with Issiah and his mom a couple days prior. Is that right?
Well, they just asked me about the weekend.
Okay. And while Issiah was staying with you, that would have been Saturday into Sunday, nobody came over. Is that right? That you're aware of?
My buddies came by.
Nobody for Issiah?
Not that I'm aware of.
And when your buddies came by, did you guys watch TV? What did you all
We was watching football.
Was Isaiah with you at all?
Isaiah was outside most of the time.
Okay. When you were with Isaiah Saturday into Sunday, you said he was outside the whole time, but at some point he did come in. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever notice him consolidating his things into less bags or anything like that?
No. Well, while he was outside, I do know he pulled some of the stuff out because at that time it was a trampoline that was out there and a chair that I was sitting in. And he sat, I think he sat in the chair and then he had some of the stuff out. And then Sunday morning, he went outside once I was taking a shower because I did come out and told him to make sure he closed my door and trunk and don't run my battery down. He didn't have money for a car battery.
Understood. You were also asked about whether or not Isaiah and Devin knew each other.
Correct.
And you described that shortly after Isaiah moved down here, that I guess they met. So if he came down in May, they may have met sometime in June or July. Is that about right?
Yeah.
And that would have been in 2021.
Yes.
And after that time, how many times did you see them together?
Like I said, only the couple of times in the yard.
In your yard?
Yes.
And so you never saw them at Devin's house or any other?
No.
Okay. And in their interactions, do you recall, how would you describe them? Were they cordial? Like, what were they like?
Well, they was just meetings, so yeah, they were cordial. I mean.
And Isaiah lived with you for about a year. There was never a time when they would hang out outside of him coming over to your house to be in the yard?
I never saw them as far as that. Like I said, most of the time, once he came in from school, he was pretty much at the house. He was dealing with his computer or his music or something.
Okay. And these events that were at your house outside of, maybe even this first one, were these like family functions, like birthday parties or family reunions? What were they like?
No, my sister lives next door. My cousin Dexter, he stays less than a quarter mile down the street. Some other cousins stay within a mile as well, so we're all right there. It's nothing to actually see each other.
What was it like, a cookout? Was there music, or was there an event or occasion when they were coming out, or was it just family just gets together because we live nearby?
Pretty much.
Okay. And were there any festivities or activities that would occur at these outings in the yard?
No, I was cutting limbs or cutting brush or whatever when they were talking. The other time, like I said, the boys come down on the motorcycle and they got to ride out in the woods, and Isaiah wanted to ride. And I did question him about it because I told him if he didn't know how, don't get on that bike, it could hurt you. Mm-hmm. And he did proceed. He got on it, and after a few minutes, we didn't hear anything. So Devin and my nephew, Dontrell, took off to the wood line, and they went and got him and pushed the bike back.
Okay. And you mentioned that they also went to the same high school. Is that right?
Correct.
Did they ride the same bus? Was there any other kind of interactions that they would have had outside of seeing each other in your yard?
They would have been on the same bus. Like I said, Isaiah, he went up, he would go and catch the bus up at the top of the street. So if they got on the bus, if my cousin Devin and them, if they rode the bus, they would have probably saw each other.
And so prior to September, I guess this would be like the 20th or 21st, when you heard about Isaiah's possible involvement in this, they never had any negative interactions that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of.
One moment, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple more questions, Mr. Bryant. You found out about Devin's body on Sunday, the same day you took Mr. Ross to the bus station.
Yes.
And I think you said you talked to his father, or some other family member informed you of what they thought they found or heard, and then eventually it got confirmed. Is that right?
Repeat that?
I will. A family member, another family member told you about what was found over at Buckhorn Road. Is that right?
Yes, my sister.
And you mentioned that maybe you were talking to some of the other people about it who were at the house with you. Is that right?
Yes.
But you never actually talked with Mr. Ross about it directly. Is that right?
He, like I said, I think at that time he was sitting in the kitchen. I was in the living room standing at my front door. When she called, I answered my cell phone. Then that's when she said that. Like I said, she called back maybe 20, 30 minutes later, and she confirmed it. And that's where I was standing. I was back in the living room, and then that's when I think I repeated that, and my buddies heard it.
But you never actually had any direct conversations or said anything to Mr. Ross if he was right there in the kitchen. Is that right?
No, not directly, not where I just called his name and said, hey, do you know? So no, I didn't.
And you said you lived with Mr. Ross for over a year. Would you describe him kind of like a quiet person who stayed to himself in his room?
Pretty much.
And he didn't have a lot of friends come over or anything like that you recall from when he was with you?
Well, he had just, like I said, he had just came down in May. So no, he didn't have a lot of friends.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
Redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Bryant, are you aware of whether Issiah and your other nephew, Dontrell, knew each other?
Yes.
And had you seen them together before?
Yes.
And more or less frequently than you saw Issiah and Devin?
I would say it was probably about the same time. Like I said, my nephew and Devin were pretty much, they was in the sports heavily. So they were constantly going to practices and stuff like that. Issiah was more into computers and music. So he was constantly doing something with his music. So he was in the room or sitting outside.
And did Dontrell and Devin spend a lot of time together?
Pretty much as long as they were breathing.
And you mentioned that Dexter, I'm not sure I fully understood what you said. He lives on the same street as you?
No, he lives, I go up to the top of my road and make a right and go down. So probably, like I said, maybe a quarter mile or less.
On that Sunday morning, when you were gone to church and the funeral, about how long were you gone?
I want to say from maybe about 10:30 to almost right at 3 o'clock.
When the officers or investigators asked if they could search inside your residence, where did they search?
I want to think they went all over the house. I told them they could search the house, and then they asked me, well, had he been outside or something? I told them, I said, yeah. I said, he was just sitting right here, right beside or behind my car. I said, if you want to, I said, and they said, do you think he may have thrown something out? I said, I don't know, but if you want to, I said, search.
And they did that?
Yes, I think so.
That's all the redirect I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Recross.
No recross.
All right. Mr. Bryant, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
You're excused at this time.
All right, thank you.
State will call Investigator Trent Hall.
Investigator Hall, if you come right up here, we'll get you sworn in, all right?
Left hand on the Bible and raise your right. You solemnly swear the testimony that you give this court and jury will be the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
When you get seated, make sure you're close to that microphone, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Would you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Trent, Trent, Hall, Hall.
And where are you employed?
The Orange County Sheriff's Office
How long have you been with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
for 10 years.
And did you have prior law enforcement experience?
I did. I was with the Durham Police Department for 17 years.
And what roles have you performed at the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Started at the jail, then patrol, then investigations, and that's where I am now.
And do you have a specialty in investigations?
I do. I'm part of the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force.
Were you an investigator back in September of 2022?
I was.
And did you respond to the area off of Buckhorn Road near Yarborough Road on that afternoon?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe what happened when you arrived there?
Looked at the scene, made some notes. The perimeter was established, spoke with Investigator Goodwin, went to the scene, observed the decedents, and waited around in case the major or captain or the investigators needed anything else.
Okay. Did you assist with locating or collecting any evidence there?
No, I did not.
And did you ultimately perform any duties while on scene?
No, I didn't.
I want to draw your attention to actually later that same evening on the 18th, did you respond to the residence of Dexter Clark?
I did.
And can you describe what occurred at that residence?
Overheard Dexter Clark speak with Captain Ray there at when we were at the office. He had myself and Investigator Goodwin and a Mebane police officer respond to the residence.
And why did you respond there?
He was missing a 9mm firearm.
Can you describe what happened when you arrived at Mr. Clark's residence?
I believe we knocked on the back door, made contact with him, and he showed us where the gun case that kept his missing firearm was. I believe it was in the top drawer of his dresser.
And were you able to look at that item?
We were.
What, if anything, did you observe about it?
But the firearm wasn't missing, or the firearm was missing. It wasn't in the case. He said it usually this is where he kept it. We also observed a box of 9mm ammo.
And what, if anything, did you do with that 9mm ammo?
I knew earlier in the day, I knew that there had been some 9mm shell casings found at the scene. So I asked Mr. Clark if we could take the box of ammunition in case we needed that for evidence.
And did he allow you to do that?
He did.
You said Investigator Goodwin was also there with you.
He was.
Which of you actually took the box of ammunition?
I believe it was me.
Okay. And what did you do with it after that?
We took it back to the office.
And did you have a chance to observe the inside of that box of ammo?
I did. I noted that the rounds were bright and shiny, didn't appear to be oxidized or be an old type of ammo.
How many rounds were in the box, if you recall?
I noted that 23 rounds were missing.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Investigator Hall, show you what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 125. I'm going to remove the contents of State's 125 and ask you if you recognize this.
It's the box we took from Mr. Clark.
And would you look inside of that box and tell me if the contents are as you remember them when you recovered that item from Mr. Clark?
I did, or I do. I did make a note that Mr. Clark wanted to keep some ammo.
Loudly into the mic, please.
I did note that Mr. Clark did want to keep some of the ammo.
Okay. So did he keep ammunition from this box before he gave it to you?
I believe so. I noted that he did keep several rounds since he bought it for his pistol.
And when you first observed it, how many rounds were missing again?
I noted 23 rounds.
Your Honor, this time I would move State's Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
States 125 will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. Investigator Hall, drawing your attention to the following day, September 19th. Did you respond to the residence of Antoine Bryant?
I did.
And why did you go there?
Major Wood told us that apparently a suspect identified as Issiah had stayed with Mr. Bryant and was friends with Devin Clark.
And what happened when you went to Mr. Bryant's residence?
Spoke with Mr. Bryant. He consented to search his son's bedroom. That's where Issiah was staying. He stated he stayed the night there over the weekend, and Mr. Bryant was concerned that Issiah may have left evidence in the room.
And was anybody with you when you went there?
Myself and Investigator Andrews.
And did Mr. Bryant allow you all to search inside his property?
He did, and I have a waiver, I believe. No, that's something else. Excuse me.
That's all right.
Consent to search.
Did you search the bedroom where he identified for you that Issiah had stayed?
Yes, we did.
And what, if anything, did you find there?
Nothing of note.
Can you describe the general, like what was in the room?
If trying to remember correctly, just sheets, bed, clothes in the closet, shoes, nothing out of the ordinary.
Did you find any electronic devices in the room?
I don't have it noted.
Is that something you would have noted?
Oh, of course. I will.
Did you find a firearm in the room?
No,
So nothing in there drew your attention?
no,
And did you collect anything from his residence?
no, I did not.
Did Investigator Andrews collect anything?
No.
Your Honor, those are all the questions I have for Investigator Hall. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Yes, please. Good afternoon, Investigator Hall.
Good afternoon.
So when you started working on this investigation, it sounds like you got there a little bit later than other people. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And were you there until like the crime scene was closed down and they were breaking things, taking the tape down and opening up the streets?
No, I believe I left before that was done.
But when you were there, you were able to kind of see the shell casings that were found, and obviously the bodies were still there on the scene.
Yes, sir.
And you got to see kind of the coloring, and you even talked about the caliber. About 9mm shell casings were found over there off of Buckhorn. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
There came a time where a call or report came in for a missing firearm, and that's why you went to Dexter Clark's residence. Is that right?
Yes, I believe in my notes it said he was speaking with our captain, Jeff Ray.
Okay. And you went there with Investigator Goodwin,
Yes, sir.
and I think he even said he met you at the back door.
Yes.
And I don't know if he came with the box, but he showed you where this box was located.
Yes, sir.
And it was clear that when you opened the box that there was an impression where I guess a firearm would sit neatly in that box.
I don't know if there was an impression, but he pointed out that he kept his firearm in this box. This is a plastic box. Usually a firearm would come in.
Okay. And the ammunition that we talked about, we're going to talk about in a second, was that in the box or was that kept somewhere separate?
I believe it was in the same drawer. I don't think it was in the same plastic box that the gun came in.
All right. And this wasn't like in a closet or anything like that. It was like a drawer, that may be in a dresser or something like that.
Yes, sir. I believe it was the top dresser drawer.
Okay. And did he give you any indication that this is where it normally is and he was surprised it was gone? Did he give you any indication as to anything about this gun other than this is the box it's normally in?
He gave us the impression that this gun was kept in this case, and he called my captain because it was not there anymore.
Okay. And when you got a chance to look at State's Exhibit 125, I think it was, yes, that's the ammunition.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that there were 23 bullets missing.
Yes.
And did Mr. Clark say that he had recently loaded this gun or anything along those lines?
No, sir.
Did he tell you how many bullets this gun held?
No.
Before, I don't know when in the conversation, but you said he wanted to keep some of the rounds himself.
Yes.
Do you recall how many rounds he kept?
No.
When you got the box, do you recall how many rounds were left in the box that you got to take?
I believe there's 2 in there.
All right, so there's 2 in there. Your Honor, can I approach State's 125 been admitted yet?
It has.
Okay, I thought so. You mind if I approach with State's Exhibit 125?
Where is 125?
It's right here on the corner of my desk.
Yes, you may.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
So inside State's Exhibit 125 is this box.
Yes.
Does it give you does it say who the manufacturer is?
Remington, and I believe the model is Range.
Okay. And the actual bullet or shell casing, does it have any initials or anything on it?
Actually, there's 3 in there.
Make sure you keep your voice up, all right?
Looks like there's 3 rounds in the box. I believe it's 9mm Ruger.
Are there any initials on there?
Is it KDA? Maybe if I had some reading glasses, I could tell you what those other initials were. believe it's at the top, between the 9mm and the Ruger. I can't read it on this one. I know, right? Yeah, let's try that. Luger 9mm, and I believe it's P plus P or R plus P.
There it is. Yeah, I can see it now. R plus P.
Yep.
We all in agreement it says R plus P?
Yes.
Yep.
You want to try the glasses too?
Sure. I think it's the glare of the lights as well.
If I use this? I might get my prescription. Yes. R plus P.
Well, the record reflect that we believe that the stamp on the bottom of the ammunition says R plus P.
There you are.
Thank you. And just confirm there are 3 bullets in the box.
Yes, three rounds.
And what is the total number that would be in this box?
50.
And he had mentioned that there are at least 23 missing.
Yes.
If I may turn this back. When you were on the scene at Buckhorn Road, I guess the day before, on the 18th, were you made aware? You were made aware that there were 9mm shell casings.
Yes.
Were you made aware of the type or manufacturer of shell casings that were found on scene?
I don't believe so.
But you did take note of the color.
I made a note of the color in the box of the ammunition, that it didn't appear that the ammunition had been kept for a long time. I noted they were shiny and bright.
What was
So they're the scene.
So the color of the shell casings we were just holding were, how would you describe it? What color? Do you remember?
Gold.
Okay. Copper,
Gold color. Yes.
Do you recall the color of the shell casings that were found on the scene at Buckhorn, if they were a similar color?
I don't recall. I didn't get that close to them.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you had a chance to go to Mr. Bryant's house. So
Yes.
leaving Dexter Clark's house, but going to Mr. Bryant's house. And you had gotten information that Issiah Ross had gone to this residence, had stayed at this residence, and that he had known Dexter Clark. Is that right?
Yes.
And so how many law enforcement officers were with you at that time?
I believe it was just myself and Investigator Andrews.
Okay. Had law enforcement officers gotten there prior to your arrival?
I don't believe they have.
Okay. So when you arrived, where was Mr. Bryant?
I can't remember exactly where he was.
You don't, did you knock on the door? Was this?
I'm assuming we did.
Okay. And are you aware of whether or not law enforcement had spoken to or interacted with Mr. Bryant prior to your interaction with him?
Well, I was asked by Major Wood to respond to his address, so I believe he spoke with Mr. Bryant.
Okay. And was anyone else present at the residence? Was Mr. Bryant's son there or any other people there when you arrived?
No.
Okay. And so when you had this interaction, it sounded like you were talking and he agreed to let you search his residence. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And is the only place you searched that bedroom, or did you look at other common areas of the house as well?
We just looked in the bedroom.
And what about areas outside? Did you ask, well, was Mr. Ross sitting here, or was he spending time there?
I didn't note that. I don't recall.
Okay. But we do know that you searched that bedroom and you found nothing of note.
Yes, sir.
And then after that interaction and after that time in that bedroom, there was no other interaction you had with Mr. Bryant about this case?
No, sir.
Nothing further.
Redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Investigator Hall, thank you very much for being
Thanks.
here. You'll be excused at this time.
Your Honor, as I mentioned to the court in chambers this morning, I have some scheduling issues with my remaining witnesses. I have run out of individuals for today. I will note I am more than 2/3 of the way done with my witness list.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can imagine, there, as we had today, a number of experts are going to be called in this particular case. And those experts, the DA has to schedule beforehand. We've been very efficient in the use of the time, such that at this point, we need to wait tomorrow till the next group of witnesses is available to be questioned. And as the DA indicated, we're more than halfway through the witnesses that they plan on calling at this time, so we're making good progress. So with that, I will once again turn you loose out into the world. Let me remind you, before you head out, all of the rules again. I think I've told you by the time you get done, you'll be able to tell me these rules. You probably already can. Please remember, number 1, y'all can hang out. You just can't talk about this case. Number 2, remember you cannot talk to anybody else about what's going on inside the courtroom. I know this is very hard because your loved ones, your family, your friends, everybody wants to know what's going on. You just have to hold them off. Be super mysterious. It'll make you so much cooler, I promise, until you get all done, and then you can talk about it. Number 3, please remember, do not let anybody to talk to you or around you about this particular case. If that happens, please let me know so I can take care of that. As you go home tonight, also remember there's going to be some media coverage about this. Please avoid it all. Television, internet, newspaper, radio, ham radio, however you get your news. Just ask you to hold off for the next couple days until we get through this trial, all right? 4th, no encyclopedias, remember? Along with that, no other investigations or any sort of other research into this case about the people who testified, about the evidence you've heard, about the law, or about anything. Promise you, doing good. Everything you're going to need to hear, you guys have heard while you've been here in the courtroom, all right? Lastly, please remember, keep your minds open. We have not heard all the evidence, although we're getting close to the end of the state's case. You have not heard the arguments of counsel, and you have not heard the law that you're going to need to apply to what you have heard. So with that, I'm going to ask everybody else to please remain seated. I wish you all a wonderful evening. We'll see you back here, and we'll start at 9:30 tomorrow morning. All right, all of our jurors are outside of the courtroom. Madam DA, I'm assuming we have the rest of your witness scheduled to be tomorrow?
Your Honor, I do have, I still need to communicate with a couple of people about their availability for the afternoon. I do have an expert tomorrow morning. I do have a witness who has to be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And then I also have Investigator Goodwin, who I plan to call in the morning after the ballistics expert testifies. She has another subpoena, so I need to get her done.
All right, let's try to the best of your ability to see if we can get everybody else lined up for tomorrow.
Absolutely, I'm going to start messaging them now.
All right, I appreciate that. Anything else you want to address before we recess?
My legal assistant continues to remind me that States Exhibits 2 through 32, although I had Investigator Baldwin come down and I did show them to the jury, I did not officially say for the record that I was publishing them to the jury, and she likes for me to keep a clean record, so I would just add that.
Well, to the extent that somebody is not clear, you definitely publish them and show them to the jury.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Trapp?
Nothing from the defense. Thank you, Judge.
All right. With that, we'll be in recess until 9:30 tomorrow morning, please.